could talk.
Yay.
I'm Wendy Stuart.
And I am Tym Moss.
You're probably wondering why we're not dancing. We always open up.
Yeah, usually because I love our opening music.
Yeah, we usually dance, but you know what? We're spent. We are spent.
Right.
Right.
We totally are.
Oh my gosh, the last week is just, you can't even describe it. We were at an amazing 9/11 event produced by Soho Johnny and Drumageddon, who was on our show. Star-studded, every single celebrity that you could think of whose music that you loved, and then all the new people.
Yeah.
And
well, that was the red carpet, and then there was a live show that went on for hours.
that live show, it went on.
It was incredible.
But you know what I want to share with our audience? The show went on for hours, and I have never been to something over 4 hours with all different performers, people that you heard of years ago that are still cranking it out, and then all the new talent.
Yep.
And it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was very entertaining. Yeah.
Can I tell them to? Tim performed.
I did.
He did. Tim was on stage with our well-known friend, photographer Billy Hess. Did I even know that Billy Hess could sing?
I know. I think he used to be an Elvis impersonator.
I love finding this stuff out about people. So it was really quite amazing. The highlight for me, part of the proceeds were going to Operation Warrior Shield, and they provide dogs, companion dogs, for people that have been in the military that have suffered from PTSD and other things. So the whole night, I'm like, where's this guy from Operation Warrior Shield? And I'm meeting.
Oh yeah, the CEO was there.
Yeah, I'm meeting Sister Sledge, Kim Sledge. I'm meeting
Mariam
Van Peebles, singer from Shanana.
Yeah.
Where is this person? So there was a guy dancing next to me a large portion of the night, because I was in front of the stage dancing the whole time.
Which is where Wendy usually is.
That's right. And, I didn't pay him any mind. I didn't introduce myself to him. I'm like, okay, he looked like he was somebody. Everybody was somebody there, right? But we're all somebody at the end of the day. But the place starts to empty out. I said to my husband, who was my shooter all the time, I said, I'm really disappointed that I didn't get to meet the person from Operation Warrior Shield. And I forgot who I was standing next to, who said to me, he's right over there. I'm like, wait a minute, that's him? I said, that guy's been dancing next to me all night. So I went over to him, took him to a quiet place, and I got my interview.
Very good.
Totally thrilled. So, speaking of interviews, oh my gosh. So our guest today, very often when you're a podcaster, you're on other people's podcasts as a guest. And I get invited onto things as does Tim, but I don't know what it was about this woman, other than she had the same name as me. There was something about her that when she asked me, and she did it more than once, because we are so busy, we get so lost in the sauce. I'm like, I'm going to answer her. And I get in touch with her. I'm like, she just sounds interesting. And then I go online to YouTube and I see her podcast. And I said, she's not only really interesting, she does her homework, and she's really cool on top of it. And there was just something so intriguing. Little did I know she had a kick butt novel out there. Yep. So I want you all to meet Wendy Koch. She is host of a Juicy Pear podcast. She got an amazing American Fiction Award for writing a paranormal romance. Never heard of that category. Ordered the book, which is something I don't have time to read. Read this cover to cover, riveting book, A Gray Resort, sucked me right in, has film potential. Without further ado, Wendy Koch, come on down.
Wendy Koch.
Did I say it correctly now? Yeah. Wendy Koch, come on down.
It wasn't me that
time. I get it all the time. It's okay.
You guys understand how often I screw up people's names, and yours only has 3 letters.
Well,
right?
And also, I mean, I'm a gay man, so of course I automatically go to the other pronunciation.
The other
But it's Wendy Koch. We are so happy to have you here.
It's so exciting to be here. I mean, that introduction, oh my gosh. Well, I hope I live up to your wonderful introduction.
That's the thing. You are, we love genuine and authentic, and you are the real deal. And not for nothing, when we read the books, we know a ton of authors, and here you are, brand new, and you wrote something. And when I promoted you online, I said a cross between Danielle Steele and Stephen King.
I read that and I thought that was the most fabulous. I'm like,
Steele and Stephen King. Okay, it never got into the dirty stuff like Danielle Steele does. You kept it so totally romantic, but it was the interest for me. We're both very much into things in the universe and the paranormal. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Yeah.
So, a great resort, all right, which I know from being on your show, you grew up in a resort on a lake. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. By the way, it's such a pleasure to be on your show. So I grew up in a very small town in a town called Tomahawk, Wisconsin, about 4 hours north of Milwaukee. It has about 5,000 people. Well, no, actually about 3,000. I don't know. I haven't been there actually in a long time. So around that range. And we lived about 5 miles outside of town. We had a wonderful resort. It was on the lake. We had 8 cabins. My parents owned this resort, and it was just a great place to grow up. We had a pool. I didn't know back then how good I had it. I don't. I don't have a place on the water now. I don't even have a pool. And it would come in handy. We have 4 kids, but anyway. So it was sort of, looking back on it, it was just a magical time. And my parents were very accepting of all kinds of people. And that kind of filtered down through my sister and I. And we just had a great upbringing. My dad would have these, my parents both would have these parties. So people would come and check in on the resort on Saturdays, right? So we would have all like 8 different families come in. And then, my mom would give them a chance to settle in. Then she would go to each cabin and say, hey, we're going to have a get together. Let's get all these picnic tables and put them up together. And they would be right up along the lake there. And, bring a dish to pass if you want, or, just bring yourself. And they did. Everyone would come. And it was just fun. And then people from in town would get wind of these parties. They would come there. All our neighbors, you hear nowadays people, they don't get along with their neighbors. Everybody, all our neighbors would come to this party. And I remember as a little girl just walking around, bumping into people. And I'm like, this is just fun. I don't know.
Now, were these like weekly, like when the new people would come in for like a week?
Sometimes, it depended on the year. Sometimes it would be like weekly. Some years it would be like maybe 3 or 4 in the summer, but it was just fun. I recall that. And I just think, how great is that? Right. We would have people show up. Sometimes they would show up and they didn't, they might've been hungry. Okay. So they'd sit down and my dad goes, here's a steak, and he would like grill all this fantastic meat. I would go with him to the grocery store. My grandfather used to be a butcher, so my dad would know how to get certain cuts of meat. He would tell right to the butcher what to say and how to do it. And I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. My dad was just great that way. He's passed on. He passed on. It's been about 7 years. But yeah, he was just, he was the grill master. He was a people person, and it was just a fun time. But along with the resort, we had a lot of paranormal stuff. Well, not to everyone, but to me, there were some things that happened that were a little bit strange. So I thought that this whole thing would make a great backstory for a book, right?
I totally love it. I'm not letting you off the hook about the paranormal things that happened, even before we get to the book. So please share with us.
Okay.
We eat paranormal.
So this was at the resort that you started experiencing these paranormal activity?
Well, I should say this. So you read the book. So the first part about my grandmother, right? That is true.
I figured you had the premonition. When I met you on your podcast, I knew you were clairvoyant.
Wow.
And then I open up this book. I'm like, God damn, she wove it into the story. All right. So tell everyone the story about your grandmother.
Okay. So God, it feels so great to say this because, I went for years and years and just wondering, how am I privy to this information? What frequency am I tapping into? I felt when I was growing up that I was bad, like there was something wrong with me, that I was a bad child, I was left-handed, and I'm,
The weird girl that could see things that other people don't see.
right.
It's a blessing
And
and a curse.
yes. So,
And again, and before, people were not embracing that. They
Right.
didn't know about it.
absolutely not. Oh, no. That wasn't the social norm at all.
Right.
So yeah, I just remember quite clearly. So my folks bought the resort from my grandparents, and my grandparents had owned the resort at the time, and we were all sitting there. And I was probably about, I don't know, 6 or 7. And I was just kind of listening to this conversation that was going on. And so my grandmother and grandfather were just talking about how they were going to go to Florida. And I was very, very close to her, very close to her. And as soon as, they were having that conversation, I got a very strong intuitive hit that, if she was going to go to Florida, she would not be coming back. I would not.
Wow.
She was going to die over there.
Mhm.
And as a child, everyone thinks, oh, imagination, that, just a child with a wild imagination.
Mhm.
And so it was such a strong feeling that, she was sitting there and I was standing by her, and she's like, oh, I'm going to bring you back shells. I'm going to, and I'm like, no, grandma, you're not going to do that. And as a little child, I just said what I thought. I said, if you go over there, because I wanted to make a point, if you go over there, you're going to die over there. And my mom just looked at me. See, my mom told me this years later. She had the same feeling, but she didn't, she didn't express that at the time.
I was going to ask you who you got it from. My mother read tea leaves. My grandmother read tea leaves. It goes through all the women in the Scotch Irish side of my family. So I was going to ask you. So you think you got it from your mom?
Absolutely. I got it from my mom. She got it from her mom. Yeah. And my mom is sort of like, I don't know, she's got a lot of stuff. Gypsy, she's got German, Austria. She's got a lot of different things going on. So I got it from her. Okay. And she had told me that she even wrote it on a piece of paper, the dates that she was, that my grandmother was going to pass away. She had wrote it down on a piece of paper and put it in the dresser because it was such a strong intuitive hit with her as well. And, it was just, so they went to Florida, and it was just very sort of traumatic. My grandfather, not without getting too heavy, I don't want to, but he was, I'm just going to say it. Yeah. So they had met another couple. Down there, and they were having fun. They were going out to lunch. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather and the guy that he met were, they were behind my grandmother and the lady that, the guy's wife, and they were in front. So my grandmother was killed along with the other lady in front of my grandfather and the other by it was a drunk driver. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, and I don't mean to, but yeah, that was so long ago.
No, this is what we want to talk about, because any of us who have had those experiences, it's like, my God, how did you, when you found this out, I mean, what do you say other than the grief?
Right. Because I'm sure it's with grief, but it was also confirmation.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. It was confirmation. I was in shock. So when my mom was standing in the doorway, the day after or whenever it happened, I knew it. She goes, I have something I need to tell you. I knew right away before she told me, your grandmother got in an accident and she passed away. And, of course it's devastating, but, and that was when I was a young child. And, as we went through the years, my mom said, I did have a feeling that was going to happen. And, I have feelings like this sometimes, and you might. And, I go, yeah, I do. So.
Now, was that the first time that you can recall, an experience like that? Or was that something even before that you could?
That's the first time that I recall something that strong. Uh-huh. But I do have like a baby memory, this seems kind of weird. I do have a baby memory. I quite clearly remember my parents were taking me they took me to a party, I guess because, they couldn't find a babysitter. And so the lady laid me down on a bed, and I was just sitting there, and I was cold, and the lady put the fan on me because she wanted noise or whatever. And my mom came in, and she saw me, like, shivering. And I remember her picking me up, and she was taking me through the party, and she was mad. She was mad at the lady who put me on the bed with the fan.
Yeah.
And and I remember Mom saying, why did you do that? And I remember the conversations, and I remember thinking, Mom, it's okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a silly story, but I do recall that.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
How old were you?
I don't know, maybe 1.
I was going to say you probably weren't walking.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it sounds strange, but I do remember that. I do. That's my very earliest memory.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
Uh-huh. Now, have you developed this clairvoyance or allowed it or worked
Nope,
on it? No?
I didn't. Now, the one thing that's interesting is because it was overwhelming. I shut it off because I didn't want that extra stuff going on, because I would go to a grocery.
It's a burden.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you walk past somebody, and you got to too have good common sense about it. I mean, you can take it, but you do know when something's really going to happen, and it's like, what? I just I don't need this right now, and I kind of close the door on it. So I'm raising 2 sets of twins, whatever. I just didn't have time for all that. But now, as I've gone on these podcasts and I'm talking more about the book, more about and people are like, yeah, you do have this gift, and I feel like the door's opening a little bit. My second book is coming out, and it's romance paranormal, so maybe that would be fitted. But yeah, so I got to figure out how to manage that if I want that to happen.
But again, I mean, it was a terrifying experience before, so there can be frightening, but it is also, if you view it as a gift,
yes,
that it's a special gift, that kind of changes the perspective on it. And again, that it's okay. Like you weren't really nurturing it. Like you said, you shut it off. Yeah. But it's okay to nurture it and to allow it and to explore.
Also, as a gift, and I can speak about this, I've completely nurtured and developed that ability in myself. It's responsible for everything that I have in my life, and that's good. I'm very in touch with it. The bad part about it is, as a performer, like Tim and I audition, you can walk into a room with 5 people sitting there, and it's like, oh my God, they see the unicorn horn coming out of the middle of my head. And I know Wendy and Tim, no matter how good an audition I give, that I can feel the vibe, as we would say.
Yes.
I can feel there's just no way I'm going to win them over. So I don't throw the audition away. I do my best, as we say, but it can be. It's very daunting when you often know what people are thinking about you.
Yes.
Well, I think it's being sensitive to energies.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm extremely sensitive to energies. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, overstep here, but I do feel like I can, I know what people are thinking, an empath, like what Wendy said, you know the vibe that's coming off. You like you said, you were tap dancing, you're doing the best you can, but you could still tell, like, oh, okay, they're not going to go with me. And, in my unicorn, you say unicorn, I got a unicorn picture right behind me.
See, I didn't even see that, but that vision came into my head, and it's like this horn comes out of my head. My husband will say to me, how did it go? And I say, oh, the unicorn horn came out again.
You know what? A good friend of mine, Katie DeVries, she makes these wonderful, beautiful pictures, and it's called Out of the Barn. Amazing artist. And she has all these fantastic sales and things that she does. And I went there, and as soon as I saw this picture, I'm like, oh, yep, that's me. I got to get it. But she does all kinds of stuff.
But, knew it immediately.
Now, you are watching If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our wonderful, wonderful, and fabulous guest, Wendy Stuart. Yes. Yay. Now you are currently in Michigan. So you left Wisconsin and you're now in Michigan. Yes. And you have 2 sets of twins, not one, but 2 sets.
2 years apart.
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah. But they're 3 years apart. You know, it always throws people off. You know, when you twins, I'm like, oh yeah, that's hard. But when you say 2 sets, I'm like, what? What happened? It's like they got hit by a 2x4. What?
in one way, I could see how when you had the second set of twins, you know what to expect. Exactly. You know, because you've been there before. But wow.
And that could be a burden or
right, exactly.
Like, oh gosh, I know what I'm headed for.
All the diapers at the same time. It was like you could have hired 4 people to help you with.
Oh, here's the thing. It was just my sister and I growing up. And I was fascinated with, you know what? I want a bigger family. Members of our family, immediate family, seem to die from accidents and just, out of the blue kind of thing. Anyway, my husband's family has a big family. So I was sort of fascinated with that. Not that I wanted 4. I really wanted 3. You know, I had, I wanted twins, and I really wanted to get it triplets, but then yeah, that's a whole different story because I went through fertility.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had to go through. Wondering if twins ran in your family or
no. We had to go through fertility, and yeah, and the comments that I would get with that, it's just hysterical. Like I could write a whole book about it. I mean, one time I went to the store. I had let's see, Ella and Olivia. They're the oldest twins. They're 17. Right now, 2 girls. And then the younger set is Addison and Hudson, and they're 14. So they're all in high school right now.
Oh, you have 2 girls and 2 boys.
2 girls and 3 girls and 1 boy, rather.
Oh, 3 girls and 1 boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And gosh, so when I just had Ella and Olivia, they were, I want to say probably maybe 9 months. And I was checking out. So back then, they just didn't have like the easy shipped where you could just order your groceries. They didn't have all that back then. They didn't have like the parking lots at Target, like pregnancy women parking lot. You know, I had to clear, walk way, park way in the back, and I'm sitting here,
hauling those babies around.
But yeah, so when I just had Ella and Olivia one time, it was just a funny comment. I was waiting, I was getting groceries, and then some lady in front of them looked at them and goes, "There's them triplets. There's them triplets." And I'm thinking, well, I wanted triplets, but there's just 2 of them at the time. The others weren't born yet, Ella and I'm like, where is the other kids? It's like, there's only 2. So it's just funny.
Funny that she almost predicted that.
Yeah.
It is fertility or not. 2 sets of twins is unbelievably symbolic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you, the next question I'm going to ask you, who inherited your clairvoyant gift of these 4 children?
Okay. Well, I have to say, interestingly enough, so Ella, I really think Ella did, and actually Olivia as well. So Ella and Olivia, they're 17. I won't get into it too much, but Ella had colic when she was born.
My daughter.
And she was very difficult at first. So for 18 months we had colic with her. And I remember with my husband and I, I'd be rocking her, and we had to walk. I had to walk, rock, and we had to do like 3 different things.
Colic, Tim?
To get her to stop crying.
You had to rock them, shake them. I told you, put them on a washing machine and turn it on.
Oh my gosh. Nothing would work. That kid would not stop crying. She wouldn't stop. I put her on.
You're a bad mother because you can't comfort your baby. I had one, and I had to listen to this stuff.
Oh yeah. I took her to all these doctors. She's just an unhappy baby. I'm like, well, why? I've done everything I possibly can. I got her on soy. I took her to the chiropractor. I did everything I possibly could, and that kid would not stop crying. And
it was her sensitivity that did that.
Yes, I think that she had sensory overload, and it was so overloaded in her system that she couldn't handle it. So she's like, and she loves to talk now. So, she's the easiest kid right now.
And you hit on the head with sensory overload. I had the same experience. Ours was diagnosed with quote unquote auditory processing problem. And I'm like, what do you mean? She was like speaking full sentences at 1. I mean, that advanced. Wow. But what was explained to me, everything with these kids that are that sensitive, everything comes in at once.
Absolutely.
so let's go back to the psychic thing, right? Imagine you walk into a crowd of people and you can hear the thoughts of every single person that's there.
Or the spirits that are around
Thank
them.
you, Tim.
And,
right. Right. Can you imagine these poor little babies?
She's very, very privy to that. She just was. And I mean, she would pull half her hair out. She looked like a sick kid. I mean, I remember we would go, my husband and I would go, okay, so it was about a 10-hour drive from where we're at to Tomahawk, Wisconsin. We'd take this long drive. The kids would be in the car in their car seats, and Ella just could not be in the car seat for that long. And we'd have to stop like every hour and a half. It was so exhausting, but she would be ripping her hair out because she was so, she just wouldn't have it. She wanted to talk. She talks all the time. Very bright girl. They're both very bright. And but she's so easy now. It's so different. And I had people tell me back then, oh yeah, they're gonna switch. The one that's easy is gonna be hard, and the one that's hard now is gonna be. And it's kind of true.
So when you I want to go back to your childhood in this resort because by the way, everybody, Wendy Coke, a great resort, and you can see the little American Fiction Award winner on there. Hopefully the light's hitting it right. What makes this story so unique is this conversation that we're having, this beautiful resort that I could tell from the book you grew up in. You had mentioned that to me, but it is in the book. Your mom creating all these parties with your dad. Your folks sounded so incredible. And yet here was little Wendy, not me, you. We're both Wendy's. And you were having weird experiences at the resort. Now, one of the first, as you said, was knowing that you were not going to see your grandmother ever again. And I think it was 2 weeks from when she left the resort to go to Florida. It was a short time period.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't even that. It was like maybe a week. I don't know. It's been a long time, but it was fairly soon because they were leaving the next week, and it was they had a couple days of togetherness on their vacation. It was like somewhere in the middle of their vacation.
It was ripped away. Wow.
And yeah. My dad had to fly down there. He was, my mom stayed up with me, and yeah.
What at the resort you had people coming and going. You were exposed to lots of different kind of people, which by the way, you had very cool parents, right? You're very lucky. You're so open. But how did that affect the fact that you knew stuff about people? What kinds of things happened at the resort?
Oh,
of your gift.
There are a couple different things. I'll go by this one with my mom. So there was a big storm coming, and it was in changeover day, and this family had just checked in, and I could tell that they were nervous about the storm. And there's a lot of windstorms in Wisconsin where I'm at. There's quite a bit. Like where I'm at now, there's not so many because the storm comes across the lake and it kind of peters out before it gets to us. But where I grew up, there was quite a bit of storms. And, a storm was coming, and I could tell, you could just kind of feel it in the air. It had like the green cast, and, you could, and you could tell this family was sitting there on the picnic table, and the wind was starting to pick up, and they were a little nervous. And they said, should we go back to our cabin, or what should we do? Where should we go? Because they were kind of scared. And we had this huge tree by this picnic table. And my mom said quite clearly to the man, she said, you can go wherever you feel comfortable, but if you don't get up in the next few minutes, the branch from the tree is going to come down and it's going to break your arm. And I don't want to get sued. So would you please move in the next few minutes? And if she was just I was like, oh my gosh, what a thing to say, right? How rude. She didn't mean to be rude, but I think she, time was of the essence. Like, let's, get your family out of the way. And as he was moving, this tree branch comes down. He had moved and listened to her, and it kind of just brushed his wrist. But if he wouldn't have moved, something would have happened. I'm sure he would have gotten hurt. Wow. Yeah. So that was a particular, that was telling. I remember recalling that and thinking, oh, that's strange. There was another tree by cabin 7 that it was a huge tree, and that tree got hit by lightning many times, and they say it's rare, right? But I don't know if it is. Maybe it's not. I hear two stories. I hear sometimes if something gets hit by lightning, then it tends to get hit more than once. I don't, but it has. It did.
Wow.
And I had stayed there with a friend of mine, and this was when I was older. I ended up staying there with a friend, and I woke up, and he was sitting there next to me smoking, and I'm like, what is going on? He goes, Wend, there's a scratching noise, and it's all around the cabin. I've been hearing it for the last hour. What the F is that? And I sit up, and I'm like, oh, that is kind of weird. I don't know. Let's just, go back to bed, whatever. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, yeah, I don't know what that was. She goes, it was probably like, a tree branch, hitting the side of it. And he just kind of, got overwhelmed or whatever. I'm like,
your mother knew what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it?
Somebody in that same cabin that had stayed there had was sleeping on a couch, and it was one of those storms. The lightning hit the tree. The lightning bolt went. It didn't hurt him or anything, but he was wearing the sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt sleeve was hanging over the couch, and it went through the sweatshirt sleeve. It fell off, and my mom felt guilty that they had to get a new sweatshirt for the boy, so she wrote out a check for a new sweatshirt, and the memo, it said act of God. I just thought it was strange. I thought it was strange, and there was like a whole, after the tenants would leave and you'd clean up, I walked in, and I'm like, you could see the line of where the lightning bolt hit it, and it was just strange. Yeah.
What I love, Wendy, is so many of these stories are in your book. All right. Which is incredible, because I didn't know what was real, what was I knew there was a large portion of it I knew was real, because I really get your head.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because I don't want to say everything, because I don't want people thinking, oh man, she is really out there, but some of these things did happen.
That's what's so interesting to me. And yet, okay, you take this idyllic childhood, you turn it into a novel. What made you take the road that you took to bring in the paranormal, and we're not giving anything away here, but your book involves aliens, okay? And you bring
it's called A Gray Resort.
Yeah, and it's
gray. Yeah.
Yep, like the Grays. Yeah.
That's right. So,
well, my mom saw a UFO.
Wow.
She
so that's not in the book.
I love it.
Okay, she did. It was back when my dad was in Vietnam, and it was right in that same area, not at the resort. It was probably a couple miles away,
Mm-hmm.
same area. She saw one, and she told me that, I don't know, she was lonely and she wanted to go for a ride. So she went for a ride, pulled over, and there was a farm field, and she was just, she had her cat with her. Her cat's name is Penny. And her cat was with her, and she was just kind of looking at deer. I don't know, just kind of being by herself. And the cat started acting really weird, scratching at her ankles. This is before she saw the UFO. And she thought it was getting dark. She thought at first it was lights from a car, but then the lights came way up over the sky, and it was not lights. It was a machine, and it was way, way off into the distance. And it was unlike anything she's ever seen before. And it was actual, like, UFO shaped, like what they say, lights all around it. And it was about to land. And she's like, I'm getting the F out of here.
Yeah.
The cat scratched up her leg. She backed out of there, got out of there, was very upset and scared. Went to my grandmother at the resort, the one that passed away in Florida. Okay. Went over there and said, I saw something. I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. And so she got her in the car, and they both went back to the spot. Of course, it was dark. They couldn't see anything, but she just wanted to show you, I just saw this. She was upset. So she called the police, and the police said that there were many dozens of calls that night that they saw something strange in the sky. They didn't know what it was. So they called the police, like, what is this? And no one could say what it was. And I found it kind of interesting. And I know my mom wouldn't lie about something like that. I know she knows what a helicopter is, what a plane looks like, and what a flying
saucer looks like.
Right. So I thought that would be interesting to use in the book as well.
Absolutely. See, I love your openness.
Right.
And of being.
I'm an open book. You know,
things.
You might as well.
Yeah. Oh, really? There you go.
I try.
Literally. What I love also about the book, and again, I won't give things away, but it's a wonderful book, and it's also very PG rated. The romantic aspects of your book are that, and you know what? That's all the reader needs. You don't need the other stuff. Your storyline is so damn fascinating.
Well, thank you. Gosh.
But so much of it is based, now I'm getting it. So much of this is based on your intuition and the resort that you grew up in, and all of those people that you met are in the book. I'm assuming the sister in the book that you call Patty, that's your real sister.
Yep. That's Trish. And she doesn't care. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And she doesn't care. She's more the pragmatic of the two of you. But the your romantic interest, who happens to be an alien, what inspired that romantic interest? Was it based on a movie, a book, or someone you knew?
Gosh, that is such a great question. That is something I totally fabricated.
Wow.
That was something I completely made up. I thought it would be interesting. I thought it would make, just for a good protagonist feel to it. And I think it would be, I think it was just, I don't know. I mean, everybody remembers when they were first in love and when they their first serious relationship, right? And their first crush. And I kind of went through that and through that emotions. And I don't think that kind of stuff ever gets old. Love, that kind of thing.
Right, I agree.
I mean, it never does. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring those feelings back. And that was my intention when I was writing it. I wanted to make it a page turner. I wanted it to be the sort of book that was hard to put down. And I wanted it just to be a different book. There's plenty of other books out there that do other things. And I wanted it to be my own. And yeah.
And you went ahead and did it. So, you grew up in this resort. The other aspect of your life that's very interesting to me, being a New Yorker growing up in the Bronx, you served in the military and you were in Desert Storm. So I'm going to throw this one at you.
All right.
That choice, first of all, I would really be afraid of getting blown up. Me, who's traveled to Africa and taken my own risk.
You've been all over the place. Yeah.
Right. But you know what? Being in something like Desert Storm, wow. So what is it, Wendy, that's in you that, made you enlist? You weren't drafted, you enlisted. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, there was a couple different things. So I'll just say this. At the time, my dad worked at Harley Davidson, and then it went to AMF. And during that time, it was they laid him off. And so there was a period of time where, income coming in, it was hard. And that was the year I graduated. So they only, had so much money. So I went to tech school for a year, and I wasn't really ready to go to college for 4 years. I wanted some money to be able to travel, and I wanted to see other things, and I wanted to get out of my small town. And I also had sort of a bad breakup. So it was like just a combination of all these things. Yeah. And I did, I kind of did a really drastic thing. I just like, you know what, I'm sick of this. I turned to the Yellow Pages, and I went to the recruiting station, and I'm like, you know what? I originally was going to go into the Air Force because I did not want to do 4 years. I wanted to do only 2. So the Air Force said, yeah, you can do, no, I got that wrong. The Air Force had 4 years, and I didn't want to do 4. So I went to the Army side, because there's the Army, Air Force, Marine. They're all in the same room, right? So I went to the Army part, and he said, yeah, we have openings for light wheel mechanic and cook for 2 years. And I didn't want to do either one of those. After I was like, I was sitting there for a while, and then he goes, well, we have this neat personal management class. There's a waiting list for it. It is an obligation of 4 years though. And I'm like, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. So I did the delayed entry program. So I was all signed up, ready to go. I would exercise around the Pony Road, as we call it in the book, Pony Road, but it's actually called Horseshoe Road. And I would practice running and, getting myself
in shape,
getting myself ready for basic training. And I just wanted I wanted something different. So, and I got different.
Yeah. You knew what was going on in the world then. You knew what you were signing up for.
Right.
So the position was going to be personnel management.
Yeah, it's just a fancy word for a pencil pusher, really. Just a paperwork person.
But they still hold your butt over to the sandy part of the world.
Yeah. So that thing, our unit, to be really honest with you, shouldn't have gone out there, but we did because my commander wanted to get promoted. So he really pushed hard for our unit to go over there. So there were a few infantrymen in our unit, which is not unusual. Sometimes you pick an MOS, is what they call it. MOS is just short for your job. Okay. And so we had these infantry people that did pencil pusher work just because they needed those slots to work in this company. And that's how I met my husband. He was one of the infantry people. And we're like, thank God there's 6 infantry people in our unit because, I don't know. It was just, the experience was so bizarre. We found out that we were going to go. And, this was like, I don't want to age myself, but it's been a long time. But I do recall the experiences out there. I couldn't believe we were going, but we did. I remember being in
how soon after you enlisted. So you weren't really factoring going over there. You were factoring.
Oh no. I should have.
Right.
I knew the possibility was there, of course. But you were like, no one's going to go to war. That's
the difference between the two Wendys. I knew that I would be hauled over there. If you told me it wasn't going to happen, I'm half Jewish. I know the things that could go wrong in life. Okay,
I'm not Jewish at all. Maybe I should be, and I would have been more.
Right, you would have been more. Right, I would say you would have. You instinctively, Wendy, you would have been more cautious.
You know what? I have never been a cautious person.
I got it.
Ever.
How long were you enlisted for before they said you're going over?
Yeah. So I was stationed permanently at Fort Hood, Texas. So I did my basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey, 8 weeks of training. And then I did my MOS training at Fort Ben Harrison, Indiana. And that was probably about 9 weeks of training. And then after that, you get orders to where your permanent assignment is going to be. And I'm like, oh man, I want Hawaii. Everyone puts in for Hawaii. And I think I wanted to be a post at South Carolina as well. I put my name in for that. And of course, that didn't pan out. I ended up going to Fort Hood, Texas, which is like the biggest military installation. Yeah. I think it's the biggest one. It is pretty huge. So I was there for, almost 3 years. It was the last year of my service that I ended up going over to Saudi Arabia, Desert Storm. Yeah. So we left, October of 90 is when we went over there. And I was over there until end of April 91. So, and we were in tents. We didn't have what you would call it, like little hotels,
no barracks. You didn't have barracks.
No barracks. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, barracks. We didn't have any of those. We had we tented it. I mean, there was 6 huge tents, and there's girls' tent and guys' tent, and there was 3 girls' tents and 3 guys' tents and officer tent and whatnot. And
it's
and we slept on cots.
10 degrees, right?
Yeah. It was. I remember our first night out there. And it's shocking how cold the desert can get, and it gets quite cold. And I never thought that. I'm like, oh yeah, the desert, it's hot all the time, and that's not the case. It got really cold in the evening time. And our first night out there, we had to get up and go to the bathroom, and we had to they had like a makeshift bathroom. So we had to walk a ways out to get out there. And they're just like, oh, just count the bushes. If the bushes don't move, then you know you're okay. There's, the enemy around. And I'm like, what is this? Is yeah, it was quite an experience. So the first night we were out there, we saw, the next morning we saw a pit viper snake.
Wow.
So, it was early in the morning and I was getting my combat boots on and I look under my tent and I see the markings of a snake, like the trail of it. I see it. I'm like, what in the heck? And I can't stand snakes. I hate snakes. I can't stand them. And I saw it and it was through, I saw the trail and this one girl, she was a clown. She just made jokes all the time and people thought that, no one believed her. So of course, where does the snake go? It goes under her duffel bag, right? So when she goes, snake, there's a snake under my duffel bag. They're thinking, oh yeah, they're all laughing. And I'm thinking, this is probably true. I see the markings and I looked it over and I'm like, so a couple of us walk over there and she goes, there really is. And she pulled it up and sure enough, it was coiled under her duffel bag, same color as the sand. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I go, I am not going to make it here. I can't stand snakes.
All right.
And that's the only time we saw the snake was the first night. I've never seen. Yeah.
He was just coming out to say hello. Welcome. Welcome you to the desert.
I know. And guess what happened to it?
Wendy.
Yeah. Well,
and guess what happened to it? It got killed. They killed it with a golf club. The guys did because they brought some golf clubs out there for off time. And they got wind of it and they're like, snake. So someone got a golf club and killed it with it.
Well, you're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your host Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our wonderful guest Wendy.
So
Koch.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
We've got some comments on.
We
here
do have
too.
some comments. Let me pick a few here. Nick Lyon, he's a buddy of ours. He says, "Hey guys, wonderful seeing you both of you at the Epic 911 Gold Benefit or Gala Benefit. Fabulous time for a great cause.
Great show.
Have a great show." Alexis Flame says, two of my favorite people.
Oh, she's fabulous.
The law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker, which I love, says he repeated what you said and said there's them triplets is a good name for your next book.
Oh my God. I agree.
I thought that was great. And Usman Rashad says, love you.
So, cool.
Now, I want to hear about your podcast, a Juicy Pear podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's called the Juicy Pear Podcast. We had it come out last year in November, and it was just something that Sean and I wanted to do. I just, things were getting stagnant here with all the rules and regulations and things, and it just felt, and nothing was changing, and it just seemed to be getting worse and worse, and no one could go anywhere, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're both creative people, and we thought it would be nice to get out into the ether, out into the universe, something positive, something fun and joyful, trying to get away from all the arguing, all the division, I'm just incessant arguing. I'm just so sick of it. And so I just told her, I said, why don't we, let's do this podcast. I think it would be fun. And I came up with the name, and I was hoping that she would be on board with the name. She loved it. She's like, oh my gosh, yes, let's do it. And, we've had a great time with it. We've had a lot of fun guests, and we're going to do it as long as we can. So it's been really fun.
Now, what are like some of your guests that you've had, and what is the show about?
So basically, really, just if someone has an interesting story, if somebody wants, has overcome an obstacle, creative types, musicians, authors, artists, entrepreneurs, firemen, nurses, and basically if you have an interesting story and we want to have you on, because everybody has a compelling story. Really, they do. They have it in themselves. And I just think it's good to have something transparent and real, and just to get away from all the crap storm that seems to be circling around everybody right now, and just have some real authenticity and storytelling, and just to have fun, really.
Yeah. Well, we're about the same thing as you are. You know, our show really it inspires people. Even to have someone on that's a celebrity. We don't spend our time talking about how did you get famous, or I look at other people's interviews. We don't do that.
Right.
What I want to find out about is how you overcame, you know, adversity on your way up there.
And what is your life experience?
Right, is your life experience.
Yeah. What makes you tick? You know, what makes a person tick? I love to hear how people have overcome that sort of thing and how they've gotten from step A to step B. It's fascinating to me. And there's a lot of interesting people out there if you give them a chance to speak, you know.
Agreed. And you know, if you can say there was anything positive about the pandemic, it's our ability. And I say this all the time. All of us now can travel anywhere in the world on a podcast. Our guests can come in from anywhere in the world. And look at all the cool people that we're meeting.
Absolutely.
That's what's so amazing. We went to this 9/11 gala where Tim was interviewing everyone. But some of those people he interviewed have been on our show, but then he was seeing them live.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Getting to meet them live was really
it
nice.
was like just getting to meet them. And we were like,
I'm jealous. When can I go up there and meet some of these people with you? I would love it. I would just.
You can hang out with me on a red carpet.
I would love it. Oh my gosh. That would be a dream.
But yeah, it's what was made it so special was, again, what we were talking about before was seeing person to person and the energy, the exchange of energy.
Right.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, I love hanging out with you on here, but in person in the same room, there's an exchange of energy.
Total different experience. Right.
Yeah. So I can't wait till we can exchange.
I would love that. I would love it. I really would.
One of the things that happened that night that was really kind of magical, we had a wonderful upcoming, well, she's been singing, but she's really taking off, April Rose Gabrielli. And that's a name you want to listen for, an amazing singer. And she shared with us on the podcast something that I had no idea about, that she had just been diagnosed with epilepsy. And she's young and she's a performer. And she talked about, you know, her reactions with it, the support of her partner. So the night of this gala, which just happened on Saturday night, my husband, who does the lighting for the show, Alan, had brought his, you know, cameras. He was going to take pictures. And, you know, he's a senior. And there were 2 steps as we were going into one of the areas. And I said, Alan, please be careful of those 2 steps. Because, you know, it was inside a big venue. It was dark.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know Alan's on the ground. And thank God he falls softly. Who was the first one over there? There were a couple of people, but the first one, I look up and there is that beautiful April Rose Gabrielli. She's as beautiful as her name. She's like, is he okay? Is he having a seizure? I said, I think he just tripped. She says, I'm getting him water. She runs. She comes back with water. She said, I know what that's like. And I thought, what an incredible, empathetic human being that I met, just like we're talking to you. And here we are in real life. And now she's trying to help my husband. You see what I'm saying?
She's an empath. It sounds like she might be an empath.
I totally believe that she is, but who would have ever thought that could happen? So that is the beauty of what all of us are.
It is, you know, you never know, you know, what little scenario could lead you to meeting, you know, a terrific person. You just never know these odd things that happen, you know.
And I would say we are all on the same page with that. Both meeting people live and then doing it through here. All of us have been blessed really when you think of it.
I have to agree with you. You know, there has been, you know, of course, all the bad things that go with the pandemic and things, but
really bad things.
Yes, horrible. Really horrible. But on the flip,
that's always crammed down our throats.
Right.
You know, you know, it's all the bad, but they never focus and show the good.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the flip side of that is it's forced people to out of their comfort zones, right? It's forced people to, you know, dig their heels in and think, okay, this isn't working. The norm is not working anymore. Let's figure out how I'm going to get through this. And, you know, I've met the most interesting people during this time. I had time to write my second book. So there are some good things that have happened.
And a lot of people I've noticed have reconnected with their passion.
Yes.
Because they put their passion off to the side to work and make money.
Yes.
This is an opportunity to, wait a minute, I want to cook. I want to write. I want to do this. I want to
and just think of all the cool the cool music, the cool books, and the art, and all the wonderful things that are coming out in the next, because of this. It's good. It's gonna be good.
So when can we expect your next book?
Okay, so I brought the book to the publisher, and there's a lot of moving parts between now and then. So I would say between 60 and 90 days. So yeah, I have to do cover design, marketing, formatting. I would say so Amazon requires that you have 60 days of pre-order before your book becomes available on paperback. So my ebook will be available by Christmas, I would say.
Nice.
My book now through Book Baby, that's the publisher that's publishing my book.
I love the name of it, by the way. That's great. Book Baby.
I know it is. Yeah, Book Baby. But yeah, that link will be available to get my paperback book. But and then Amazon, if you want a paperback through there, it might be around Christmas. So I around Christmas. So that's the goal.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, now thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our wonderful, wonderful guest, Wendy Koch, and her book, A Gray Resort. Please go out and get this book right now.
You can get this on Amazon.
Now,
I ordered it on Amazon.
How can people find out more about you and about your book coming up?
Sure. Yeah. So, I have wendymkochauthor.com, my author page. You can go right on there and order my book. You can go right on Amazon. You can look me up by Wendy Koch, K-O-K, or you can just look up A Gray Resort. It's available on ebook. juicypearpodcast.com. You can go there, subscribe. You can download the episode right from the website, or we're on all the directories. I'm on Instagram under Wendy Koch #4.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. So
tell us about that anthology that you were part of.
Oh gosh, yes. Okay.
We don't want to forget.
Thriving Beyond Crisis. Conversations with Resilient Entrepreneurs. I got that out. That's a mouthful. So yeah, I'm so glad that you reminded me. So I'm a part of this wonderful, wonderful book from authors from all around the world. It just came out in August. So it's an ebook right now. It's going to be a paperback soon, but it has already made bestseller status in several different categories: spirituality, childcare, whatnot. So it's been wonderful. It's the brainchild of Divya Paresh and Lisa Marie Pepe, and they got all these authors together, and I'm one of them. And we all have different short stories, about 10 pages or so, a wonderful mixture of stories. So go get that. Thriving Beyond Crisis, that's on Amazon, available on Amazon right now. So.
Okay, cool.
Love that.
I love it. Yeah.
Now, also one thing that I forgot to mention is that Wendy and I are doing this live from PANGEA. In the comment section, there's actually right down below is a GoFundMe for PANGEA. PANGEA has always been supportive of the arts, and during the pandemic, now it's time for us to step up and help them.
Absolutely.
So.
You know all about giving back, Wendy, right?
Yes.
It's all about giving back and what they've done for the arts community. And right now, we are open in New York. You have to show your vaccine card, but they have every night shows booked here.
Yep.
You can have a wonderful dinner and have an incredible show. Yeah. And
wonderful.
Really, I just got tickets, and so did Tim. Our friend Tammy Faye, who is a wonderful performer, does a character now. She sings as his character Tamar, she won the Eurovision contest as an Israeli singer. And
that sounds very interesting. I gotta go see it.
You just check her out. She's on Instagram. You can go to Tammy Faye on Instagram. She's hilarious. She's performing here every Thursday in October. I have to give that a shout out.
Wonderful.
We all have to, what do we say? We're all in this together.
Yes, we are. Absolutely. It's been fabulous being on your show. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. We so appreciate you coming on the show and sharing
so much fun
with us. This was great. And just helping us to get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
And thank you to our audience for tuning in today.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.